Okay. So I have proposed the topic, how to walk the talk, not just talk the walk. This was actually suggested by one of the venerables at the monastery on the Uposatha day. That's the full moon day and new moon day. We have a program and we have a Dhamma talk here. And this was the topic that they suggested. And I thought that's quite an interesting talk, a subject, because there are many, many, many teachers in the world. And many of us are very good at articulating the Dhamma. Yeah, many people are very good at giving really good Dhamma talks and talk about the path, talk about this amazing journey, the amazing walk. But it is extremely rare to find in the world somebody who can really perfectly walk the talk as well. So talking the walk is easy, but actually doing the walk is not so easy. And it's actually doing a perfect walk is actually a quality special to the Buddha. This is called in Pali, Atavadi Tatakari, Tatakari Yatavadi. So do as you speak and speak as you do, another way to express it. And so it is only a perfectly enlightened Buddha who can do this perfectly. And you wonder why? What about the Arahants? Of course, Arahants will be also very, very, very close to, because they have already reached the goal, but maybe some of them might have a little bit of a limp. So they might still walk. And what is that? That is sometimes some very simple habits can be still there. So to an outside person, they may appear as if they're not walking properly. That is why it is really hard for us to even find out who is an Aryan and who is not an Aryan, because we look at people with our own idealistic ways, but some people just have habits. Some people just have a habit of saying bad jokes. So sometimes we can't really, we may not see how properly they are walking the paths or even have reached the goal. But with a perfectly enlightened Buddha, the habits are not there. So this gives us a little bit of a understanding of why it is hard to walk the talk. Talking about is easy. All of us can also talk about the walk. To some degree, we know enough Dhamma to be able to do that. But why it is hard is also when we don't have enough mindfulness, our habits get in the way. Right? So this is why sometimes it's really hard, because I'm sure each one of us have experienced this, that the times that we have sort of done things that we are not proud about. Yeah. At those moments, sometimes you know what to do and what not to do very clearly, yet you have been unable to do it, isn't it? This happens sometimes, and you feel bad. I've been practicing for so long. I know Dhamma so well. I know how to better behave, but I failed. And why? Yeah, because sometimes our habits, samsaric habits, are very, very strong, and they take the better of us at times. So that is why in the Buddhist path, mindfulness has a very important role. So without an aroused mindfulness, it's really hard to walk the talk. Talking, sometimes you can do after a while. If you give the same talk a few times, you can automatically do it. It's like driving from work to home or home to work. You can almost close your eyes, isn't it? And you just get there because you practice and then you can do it. But the actual thing is not that easy, is because of lack of mindfulness. So, and also to bring up that awareness into our hearts. that it is also rare in the world to find a teacher who actually walks the talk, not just talk the walk. And those of us who are in Sydney, we had a very good opportunity very recently to be in the presence of such a teacher who came for a visit. And that was really nice. Yeah, that is very special. So that's what was special, is when somebody who also practice deeply, and when they speak, it does something to us, and that's quite special. And it is also special to be in the actual presence of these people, not just through Zoom or YouTube. So when we have that fortunate opportunity, it is important to grab it, because it is extremely rare in the world to find such a teacher, such teachers. So the rest of the talk, I actually want to focus on this mindfulness, because that is what is important if we want to walk the talk. Because we, all of us here, know quite a lot about the path, the practice, how to do, what to do. Some of us know and can tell other people really well, the techniques of mind training, what to do exactly when, and what's the antidote for what. All of this we know. But when it's happening to us, why is it hard? It's a couple of things. So it's mindfulness. And any of you, when you meditate, you will also notice, how do you know whether you have mindfulness or not? How do you gauge that? Yeah. How do you gauge? I mean, we know when we are completely mindless, no, not at that time, but we know after a while that I was completely unmindful. But how do you know whether you were mindful? It's an interesting thing, because when really proper mindfulness comes up in your mind, there is also joy. Yeah, because the mind has energy. So when you have not the forced mindfulness, not like really focusing, like Ajahn Brahm was trying to show, yes, it's about stillness. It's not about concentration. Yeah. So mindfulness also comes in a very beautiful way, that is not with lots of willpower, but with wisdom power, with stillness. So when the mind becomes still, your awareness increases. And with that, there is energy in your mind. That means you have joy, happiness coming up. So if you have joy, happiness coming up, you feel that kind of energy in the mind, then you know you have mindfulness. And this is important for us to know. So otherwise, if you have just that forced mindfulness, we can't sustain it long enough. That is why we were mindful for a little while and it's gone and we are completely lost and we end up doing something bad. So it is important to do it in the right way, do the right steps. So that is why even for meditation, I like to start it as relaxation. Because for a lot of us, it's very hard to relax. Yeah, so first of all, we have to learn how to relax our body, learn how to relax our mind, and bring our body and mind to a place of seclusion. So even do this at a place not that is very busy. If you have a little corner in your house, a room in your house that is quiet, it is important. And this is what the Buddha said, that the whole path is to be developed based on seclusion. Viveka Nisitang. Yeah, Viveka Nisitang is so important. So only when we have like a physical seclusion and seclusion of the mind, the energy slowly starts to build up. So as the energy builds up, a little bit of joy starts to come up. Then you can be sure that your mindfulness is also increasing. So this is important. So once you are in a stage like that, when you are a bit joyous, when you are a bit peaceful, when you have sat for meditation for a while, and that is a time then to bring up, after you have come out of meditation in such a state, you can tell your mind some instructions, like some of your bad habits, for example, or you know what are the things that you need to do to cultivate the path. What are your weak points? What are your strong points? Right? So this is why, because we are quite good experts as on talking the walk, but this is now about walking the talk. So in order to walk the talk, now we need to remind ourselves, what are my steps? Where do I have to start? Where am I at on my path? Yeah, so all of these needs to be done at a time when you have a certain degree, at least some degree of mindfulness and peace. When you have that, then you can actually tell yourself, okay, some of these habits, sometimes it can be speech habits that you want to sort of correct. Because Samma Vacha is part of the path, isn't it? Noble Eightfold Path. And speech is something that actually gets in our way, gets in our happiness, yeah? Because people's speech, our own speech, brings a lot of suffering, pain, and grief to each one of us. Yeah, in the last talk was not recorded, but last talk was about bad speech. Like the people were asking to say, why do people badmouth? That was the topic of last week, and that is because people are suffering and people are unmindful. And once this happens, it's very hard to go any further because that is part of virtue. And we know mindfulness is based on the foundation of virtue and right view. So therefore, it is really important that we become a little bit peaceful. And when we are a little bit of peaceful, when we have some degree of mindfulness, we give little instructions to ourselves to sort of deal with little things, maybe one or two things at a time. So once you make little suggestions to your mind about how to take the next step, little baby steps is fine. We don't have to walk the path very quickly and perfectly. That doesn't matter. If we are limping, never mind. As long as we are heading in the general direction, gradually we can refine it. Gradually we can, energize ourselves. Gradually we can make it more perfect. But so we have to be gradual, but it is important that we take these little steps. So the best way to do it is when we have a little bit of mindfulness, we can make suggestions to ourselves. So you'll be surprised then during the day. Um, these will come up in your mind and you will be able to apply yourself. Because the other question that I want to ask, what is the time to do this walking of the talk, right? Every wakeful moment, not certain times, not when you go on retreat, not when you are at the temple or listening to a Dhamma talk. We should be ideally walking the talk every wakeful moment in our life, right? Guarding our mind, guarding our speech, guarding our body, and cultivating our mind can be done every wakeful moment. So, and doing it gradually. How do you do it? So, we need to do it in this way. So, bringing up mindfulness is important. And it has a lot and lots of benefits. The kind of mindfulness that I'm talking about here is what is called in Pali Sati Sampajanya. This is translated also as mindfulness and clear comprehension. So what is the difference here? So this is like, if you just think about even a cat intent on catching mice. It's very mindful, isn't it? They're watching very, very eagerly. Sometimes we wish that we can be so mindful of one thing. But of course, that is mindful on something that is unwholesome. It's coming from instinct, right? The cats just catch mice by instinct. Well, and so that's not really what Sati Sampajanya is about. Sati Sampajanya is you are aware of what you're doing. Then you are aware of why you're doing it. And you're aware of how you're doing it. And you're aware, is it harmful to myself? Is it harmful to another? Is it harmful to both? If that is the case, you know not to do it. If it is not harmful to oneself and others or to both, then you know that you're doing the right thing. So all of these you can see how. So when you're doing that, you are actually walking the talk. But you also know, we all know how hard this is at times, right? Our speech, it seems as sometimes our mouth has a life on its own. Sometimes before we know it, we have said a lot, isn't it? Sometimes you feel like that. And that is why the mindfulness is slow to come up. But once you actually catch yourself and know your weak points and know your triggers, so what triggers me to sometimes say bad speech or speech that's not that skillful, or actions, what are the triggers that gets me into doing something that is unskillful. So paying attention to those, and at a time after meditation, after you become a bit more peaceful, when there's joy in the mind, then you can make some suggestions to the change that you want to do. And slowly you can see that this will come in to play. So you will be able to gradually apply yourself. And gradually, you will see that you are not just only talking the walk, but also able to walk the talk. But don't ever try to be so perfect straight away and beat yourself up thinking, oh, I'm making mistakes. I lost it. I can't do it. I don't have time for it, and things like that, because that is not helpful. As we know, the starting quality that in Karaniya Metta Sutta is sakko. That means, yes, I can. You have to have that I can do this kind of perception. It's a perception that we have. Why not? Yeah, so I can do this. This perception is quite important to cultivate. So then gently arousing this sati sampajanya, it's a habit. So it's also a wholesome one. That is how we are driven by habits. So what we do is we retrain our habits and make them wholesome habits. So you make a habit to check in with your mind very frequently. You're checking in with your mind to see, what's my mind like? What am I doing right now? What am I thinking? How am I thinking? Why am I thinking like that? Is this helpful or it's unhelpful? So like this, when you actually start doing that for a little while, in the beginning, it'll take a bit of effort. It'll take a bit of reminding yourself. But after a while, you will see that it actually sets in. So sati sampajanya sort of gets established in you. You will notice that automatically something, it's like a little voice will warn you against things. And you'll be surprised. Oh, you can catch yourself just before you make a mistake. So this is really important to establish sati sampajanya, clear comprehension, mindfulness and clear comprehension. There is a very beautiful sutta in Numerical Discourses, Book 8. I think it's Sutta number 81 or 83, called Sati Sampajanya Sutta, Mindfulness and Clear Comprehension Sutta, something like this. And in that sutta, the Buddha talks about 8 steps to all the way to liberation. And the only path that we know is the Noble Eightfold Path. So this must be parallel, or it must be another way of presenting it. But in this, the first step is Sati Sampajanya. The path starts in this sutta with mindfulness. So it's important because normal path, it's the 7th factor, right? The right mindfulness. Samma Sati is the 7th factor. But in this sequence, it starts with Sati Sampajanya. And you can see, if you don't have that basic mindfulness, you can't even have the first actual step of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is right view, right? If you forget right view, we can't apply ourselves. We can't, if we forget right intention, we don't know the attitude, how to receive the world or how to react to the world in the right way. So you can see how it is so important to establish sati sampajanya, mindfulness, in our day-to-day activities. Because the other question that a lot of people ask is, I'm very busy, I have a young family or an old family, I have a busy life and very challenging career, I still want to practice, can I practice? Am I, I don't have enough time to go for retreats, sometimes there are no opportunities to go on retreats. So how can I practice? How can I make progress? How can I actually walk the path in these circumstances? So every time you are able to establish sati sampajanya and allow that mindfulness to guide you in your normal day-to-day activities, whatever that may be, then you are actually applying yourself. The Noble Eightfold Path is being applied. It can be applied. How do you speak? How do you think about things? How are your bodily actions? Yeah, what is your attitude towards whatever is in front of you? How do you receive when things go wrong, things are out of your control? Do you have right view about things? So like that, every little thing, even if it is such a mundane thing, you can and you must, and that is where the path begins. That is where the whole walk begins. Yeah, at wherever you are, there is where you start the walk. So the other thing is that, as I said, as mindfulness increases, joy increases in your mind. But also, when you are able to bring up joy into your mind, it is a helpful support to establish mindfulness as well. So you can bring up joy from other ways, right? That's why I said even something very simple like bringing up a smile uplifts your mind, or recollecting some good thing that you have done, or rejoicing in the goodness of another, or remembering some good qualities of the Buddha, or remembering some nice Dhamma, remembering the good qualities of Arya Sangha, or any of those many ways, just bringing up that brings up some joy in your mind. And that joy, on the other hand, helps for the mindfulness to come up. And as the mindfulness comes up, joy increases. Make sense? So this is the other way. So for us, when we have a busy day, sometimes it is okay to use that kind of skillful means to bring up a little bit of joy, to establish that initial mindfulness. And once you have that mindfulness, then you are able to stay in the present moment. Otherwise, the mind starts to just run away constantly, and it's a big struggle to try to ground it here, isn't it? Especially when you're tired, when the mind is a bit down, which is the normal state for most busy people, yeah, because of the circumstances. So you have to give it a little bit of a lift, a little bit of a helping hand. So when you do that, then it is able to establish this initial mindfulness. And then you are able to sort of build it up gradually. And then you are going to be able to walk the talk. So I think for a weekday evening, this much of speaking may be enough. I would like to open up for any questions. And it's always nice to have a couple of questions. And it's always helpful for everybody. So don't be shy. Just, yeah. Did it make sense?
Sorry, Ayya, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to ask, so when we, make mistakes or we, fall down,
Yeah.
during our busy lives, what's the kind of, I guess, skillful way to get back up and learn and things like that?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Yeah. Because I was actually discussing this with the friends that I was at in Canberra about guilt, the world, and from the whole time, and it's getting even worse now, people like to go on guilt trips. And guilt is very much emphasized, guilt and punishment in the world, in almost all the religions even, yeah. But in Buddhism, there is no place for guilt and punishment. And that is so important. And the way how you deal with it is understanding the conditioned nature of our actions. Yeah, we are completely driven by our conditioning. This is the Buddha's beautiful teaching, the teaching that is very unique to Buddhism, which is the non-self, anatta. Yeah. So even understanding it at a very simple level and seeing, so very good thing that you can do to get a good understanding about is that whatever time that you fall down, when you make a little mistake, not at that time when you're emotional, when you're upset or whatever, not at that time, but at a time when you're peaceful, at a time when your mind has energy. Look back. This is called paccavekkhana. So it's a very helpful technique that the Buddha says, reflecting back, retrospection. Yeah, look back and see what are the causes and conditions that led up to that point. What made me to do it? And you can actually see, oh, previous night I haven't had a good sleep, or I wasn't feeling well, or I had a lot of stress because of work, or the way that other person spoke affected me. So many things. There are multiple causes and conditions that affect our actions by body, speech, and mind. But once you see this, once you start to see this, you really start to see how you are driven by so many things. There is no agency inside of here. We feel that there is an agency, and that is why you feel really responsible and feel terrible and all of that. But once you really see that conditioned nature of our actions, it becomes possible to really forgive ourselves, not to have guilt. It doesn't mean that, oh, I am just driven by the world, so I can just allow myself to do whatever. That's not the path either. Yeah, the restraint is there. So what you do is you make changes. You know how to take care of. So you make determination not to go there, because you know whatever you did or habit or whatever it is was hurtful and harmful and unskillful. But you see the causes and conditions that led. So you change the causes and conditions. You work at those places. So if you have to avoid certain things, you avoid certain things. If you want to build up certain things, you build up certain things. You want to put some boundaries onto certain things, you do that. Whatever it is it you need to have, don't be hungry for too long because hungry people sometimes get angry. Okay, then you know, all right, have something to eat. Yeah, if you're tired, have a little nap. Don't push yourself. So just learn and change those little things. But most people, they keep going again and again in the same way and think that something will change. And that is why we are repeatedly making the same offense, if you want, repeated offenses and repeated punishments and going back into jail again and again in our mind. So therefore, when you look back, even the smallest thing or the biggest things, it's very, very important that we don't have guilt and remorse, because that's block number one. If you look at the suttas that talk about meditation psychology, you know it starts with non-remorse. So if you have regrets and remorse, forget about making any further steps into meditation, because joy and uplift will not come into the mind. But of course, we can't avoid not making mistakes, because we are human. And unless we are fully enlightened, we are bound to make mistakes, fall down, fall short of things, hurt ourselves and hurt other people. That's being human. Yeah. So that's the other thing. Understand, I am human. Other people are human. And it is nature of human beings to make mistakes, do stupid things from time to time. Because it's not always the spiritual faculties that are dominant. When the defilements, that team is dominant, they take the lead and guide you. in the wrong direction. So it's really important. Once you understand, then you know how to take care of yourself. So that is why the four foundations for building up all the qualities are Viveka Nisitang, Viraga Nisitang, Nirodha Nisitang, Vassagga Parinami in Pali. So Viveka, we already said, based on seclusion. And why that is so important, unless you have that a bit of time, a bit of space from things to contemplate, to reflect, to build up that mental energy, you can't do anything. You're completely driven by these external and internal causes and conditions. You are like a slave being pulled, like a cow or a bull being pulled by the nose. Yeah, you just go and you have no way to do anything. But once you have that ability to stop, have that ability to have some space, you are able to take charge. You are able to do something about it. So this is why it is important. So having some time, having some space to yourself, and building up mental energy, building up some joy, that is very important. So, and when you have that, you are able to deal with your shortcomings and not go on guilt trips, because you can easily forgive yourself when you have your mind is in the right place. But when your mind is not in the right place, it drags you because it likes to go in that way and beat yourself up and feel guilty. I don't know. This is what humans are like. So it's actually not good. So it's really important question, and it is done all, again through mindfulness, and that is how you apply, because non-self is right part of the right view, right? So right view is that one of the three characteristics. So remembering that, you're able to deal with that and continue and learn from it. So one of the really, really important attitudes for life is not to be scared of making mistakes, because we are going to make mistakes in life, but to learn from our mistakes. But if we never learn from our mistakes, we are very stupid people. Yeah, so don't have the attitude of, because this is what stress people out, to be perfect, not to make any mistakes, to be the perfect mother, to be the perfect father, to be the perfect spouse, to be the perfect child, to be the perfect worker. That idea of not making any mistakes stress people out so much. But remember, we are human. We still have defilements, so we will make mistakes. Important thing is to learn from them. You need mindfulness. So once you have that sati sampajani, at least a base level of that will collect data in the background. So even when the defilement is strong and you can't see it or you can't act upon it, later you will still be able to reflect back, do the paccavekkhana, retrospection, and learn from it. And that's really doing the path. So you are then walking the path. So then you feel good. Yeah.